Hello and welcome to the first of this year's live-streamed writing workshops to support the Bruntwood Prize for Playwriting. It's a partnership between the Royal Exchange Theatre Manchester and property company Bruntwood. The prize is an opportunity for writers of any background and any experience to enter unperformed plays for a prize fund totalling £40,000 and development opportunities. And we are here in Bruntwood's NEO, N-E-O, strange film set looking building to explore the process of playwriting and to explore it particularly in the context of imagery, metaphor and meaning. And it's very, very lovely to be here with you and with you, mythical people at the other end of that camera. And I hope we have a very nice time together for the next 2 hours. And I've been very nervous about this workshop, actually nervous. Firstly, because I was convinced I was going to forget the title. And I think I remembered it. It was something like Imagery, Metaphor and Meaning. And then I thought, well, how am I going to explain what these things mean? And I'm not really sure I can, to be honest with you. But I think it's a way of thinking about the world that we're going to explore together. And we're going to explore it together through, I don't know, through being with each other and through thinking and through maybe creating something with each other too. And it interests me because I know that most plays, most drama that gets created, maybe on film or on telly or even on theatre, is all about the outward appearance of things. I mean, you know, if I look around this room, I can see some sort of teledrama happening here, for instance, and it would focus on the furnishing and the lighting and on this huge, weird, angle-poised lamp here. It would be about the external things, because we live in a materialist society that is about things in so many ways, and plays that are about showing us the external reality of the world around us is very much part of this materialist world. It's kind of like writing drama for capitalism, writing capitalist drama, and I'm not interested in that. I want to write post-capitalist drama. I want to write plays that open up everybody's imagination, that empower the audience and empower everybody involved in creating the play to imagine a different society, imagine a different world. And that means, I think that means that I tend to write in a different kind of way. So that if I'm coming in to see a play, for instance, and I see the set before the play starts and it's got a sofa on it, I just want to run a mile, because I think, you know, it's really wicked of me in a way, but I just think because this is going to try and convince me that we're all in a living room, and I don't want to be in a living room. I want to be somewhere else. I want to be in a poetic space. I want to be in a space that explores the inner world. And that means thinking about imagery and metaphor and meaning, and I've said it again. So that's what I'm hoping that we're able to do this evening. But we're also going to think about the basics of writing a play. And where do plays come from? Well, plays come from us, first of all. Because each one of us here and each one of you over there too, we're unique. There is something in us that has to do with our genes, with what happened to us when we were children, with our education, with who we are, with where we live, that is unique to us. Each one of us has something to give the world that no one else can give. And that means that in order to do it, we have to have a sense of ourselves. We have at least to have a sense of ourselves as being people with something to say. That what we have to say really matters. And I think that's very difficult, actually. That's something we can kind of develop the more we write. But I know I'm not alone in often thinking that everything I write is just shit. Do you know, it's just worthless. And we have to try to keep reminding ourselves that it's not, that we are worthwhile people. That's very important. That's the first thing. But of course, as well as being unique individuals, we belong to a collective. We belong to the world. And so plays also come from how we see the world, what we see in the world around us. And there's another discipline involved here, which is trying as much as we can to live in the pleasant moment, in the present moment. Trying to be there, trying to see what is happening around us. And that's difficult too, because as I don't know about you, but every time I walk the streets, I'm horrified by the number of people that are not in the present moment. Either they're in their past, or they're they're looking at their phones. That it's very, very hard these days to be here and now. And that's another discipline somehow that we have to develop in ourselves in order to write. So should we just test this out? What I'd really like to hear from each one of you is your name, because I'm sure they'd want to know. They want to know who you are, and I want and just something you've noticed about the world today. Let's start with you, Josh.
Sorry. Sorry, Josh. Something I've noticed about the world today, how quiet it is in Manchester Central Library, and how much every single movement echoes around the room.
Thank you, that's lovely.
So my name's Mandla, and what have I noticed? I suppose today I realised that I'm not necessarily alone in kind of feeling like writing's a bit of a lonely and solitary act, and so, kind of talking to other writers and trying to work away that sort of solitary loneliness.
That's beautiful, thank you.
My name's Amy. Today, walking here from Manchester Piccadilly Station, I noticed how unaware everybody else is of everyone else's physical space when they got something to me. Yeah, people just they're not aware of the paths that other people are on, and they just barge into you, and yeah, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, so was there something specific that made you see that?
It was people, they sort of making space for me, but not quite making enough space for me. So it was like a half-hearted gesture of, I can see that you're there and you're walking, so I'll sort of move a tiny bit because I have to, because that's what you do, but not enough to actually give me space, so they still barge me with their bag or their shoulder, or it's like, oh, okay.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'm Jo. I can't get over this bloody chair. I find this chair very intimidating, and I suppose, it's really interesting, and it's very funny that you're in a different sort of chair, and I'm in this chair, and I'm not sure that's quite right, actually.
But The crew having panic.
He'll get terribly unhappy if I do, because we'll wreck his symmetry. But just the way I suppose it's to do with the way furniture expresses something about the world. Maybe we'll think a little bit more about that in a minute.
My name's Kofi, and I think what I realised today was how big the emotional spectrum is. Which is a surprisingly deep answer.
So what will be at one end of it?
I don't, because I've worked with kids, so
Okay.
like teenagers, so just to see how much they can grow into just a short space of time emotionally took me by surprise, especially today, seeing a student from September to now, and to see their growth, it just made me take a step back.
Right.
So,
Has that been a growth in the good direction?
yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane. I noticed today, again, I've walked down from Piccadilly train station, and I've not been to Manchester for quite a while, so it just seems very, every time I come out of Piccadilly it's very overwhelming and busy. But I do notice, or I have noticed today, little random acts of kindness. People helping other people. Just some lady getting off the train with a pram, people helping her off. People just talking and laughing, and it just makes a very pleasant change to see that. I think just these little things, especially when it's such a horrible cold day, that people can be kind.
Oh, that's lovely, thank you.
I'm Bex, and I think what I've noticed about the world today is that people move a lot faster in the rain than last week. I don't know, like people don't linger, people don't notice things in the same way. Like everyone's really wherever they're going to, they just want to get to, and people aren't willing. Weirdly, the opposite way. I quite like today, people just won't willing to stop or notice people.
Or make space for people.
Yeah, and even to the point where I actually watched someone nearly walk in front of a bus before, because the lights hadn't changed and there was traffic, and then they walked out, and then the lights, obviously the traffic moved and the lights were still on green. So, but just because people just so want to get wherever they're going to.
Yeah. Thank you. Isn't it? Oh, and I wish I could ask you. Well, maybe you've been thinking about your day, you people behind this camera. Because what is amazing, what is beautiful about the world is the way that everybody sees it differently. So what we've had, I think, is well, there's sort of 7 of us, aren't there? So we've had 7 really different images of the world. And I think that's very beautiful. And if I try for a minute to just get back to imagery, I'm thinking of you, sort of, you as a person in this huge crowd of the city, and the silence of the library, and people just invading other people's spaces. What you were talking about, and then you and this sense of people growing and changing, and the amazing spectrum of human emotions. That is exactly what I think a really good play does. It enters into this richness, and then it was these random acts of kindness, of people suddenly wanting, needing, being able to express a human solidarity. And human solidarity is something that is, I just think that's so important in theatre. Sometimes I think theatre is like a gymnasium for that. It's a place where we're able to develop our capacity for empathy for each other, just to think what it's like. And then you and your people walking in front of buses and kind of just not. Just not looking where they're going, being unaware, and that is so much part of our world as well. And then there's me stuck in this. I've been told I'm not allowed to swear, so I'm not going to say anything about this chair, except that it's very big. And what's interesting about this chair, what's interesting about it in terms of what we're supposed to be thinking about, is what this chair means. So, do you know what I mean when I say it's more than just a big chair? It's a chair that signifies authority. It's a chair that signifies, oh, I don't know, what else does it signify?
Status.
Status, okay. What does it mean to you, this chair?
You know, yeah, it's like you're sort of like the centre, and we're just sort of like you're on a throne, and we're sort of like your minions on your court or something.
Yeah. Because it's a big lie, this chair, isn't it? Because that's not actually how it is at the moment. Yeah.
The chair.
The chair.
Well, it's comfy. It's like you can chill out whilst we're on these little uptight chairs where we've got to work.
Don't think Jo finds it cool.
Oh. I don't feel comfy in it at all. Do you think I should try? Yeah. Okay. So yes, right.
I think it's quite like limiting as well. There's
Yeah.
something about
It's a trap, isn't it?
Yeah, but also it's like something quite like it's meant to feel quite comfy and stuff, but it's not really. It's not really how you would choose to do this in a normal situation. So it's like
It's movement as well. Your chair moves.
Oh yes, it does move.
We're stationary, so it's like you can survey.
I can survey the world. Yes. What about you, do?
I was thinking about it, but everyone's made some pretty strong points, so I feel like I'll just let them roll with that one, and I'll just come with something later on. At a later date, so yeah.
I mean, this is exactly what I want us to be thinking about, because so that it's not just how the world looks, but it's what it signifies. And this chair signifies all kinds of things. Some of them are lies. Some of them are about authority and the nature of authority in this world we live in. And and I think it's really interesting that somebody said, oh, it's supposed to be comfortable, but actually it isn't. Because power is a bit like that. And so if I was to make this character, this chair, a character in a play, I guess I'd try to encompass, or I'd try to use all these different dimensions. So this is really absolutely what I mean by what's the title? You keep remembering it. It's imagery, metaphor, and meaning. So it's like there are two levels to the world. There is the outside, and then there's something going on underneath that we're not always aware of. Yeah? And I find it dead exciting to think about this other bit down here and what it could mean and how we can use it in the plays we create. How can we make use of this different dimension? Should we start to think about it? Because I can't tell you how to do it. I can't tell you how to do anything. I hope you're not expecting me to tell you how to write a play, because I can't do it. All I can do is write my own stuff and try to communicate a little bit about what that's like. And it's up to all of us here and all of you there to work out your own way of making it happen, whatever it is. Because actually I don't know what it is, but I think we all know when we're in a theatre and it's happening. Yeah, it's a kind of, I don't know. We won't try and describe it just now, but do you know what I'm talking about? That sense, Christ, something really, really important is happening here. Something is happening that couldn't happen in any other place. Something that's never, ever going to happen again. Because that's what theatre is about. Okay, so where does this come from, and how do we get there? Well, it comes partly from what has happened to us. I mean, look at us, there's 7 of us here, all individuals, and I don't know how many people are behind that camera, and we're just kind of ordinary looking people. Actually, very lovely looking people, all of you, very lovely looking people. But we're also gold mines, diamond mines, because each one of us has inside us this incredible treasure house of experience, treasure house of knowledge that we have to learn somehow to draw out of us and transmute into a beautiful piece of art. When I was teaching full time, I always used to tell students, these were acting students actually, that we were so lucky as artists, and we are lucky as artists. We are lucky as artists because although we can't help but be afraid of what may happen to us as we live in this really dangerous world, at the same time, everything that happens to us can be used to enrich our art. I suppose I think about this as a trans person, as someone that grew up looking in the mirror and then not recognising the boy that I saw staring back at me. And for years and years and years I thought this was the greatest, most horrible misfortune. But slowly now, as I enter my late 60s, I'm beginning to understand that this is an incredible source of wealth. This is a treasure. This is a huge privilege because this has enriched my experience of the world, and it has enriched my art. And my last play, which has just opened in Cardiff, Taming of the Shrew, could only have been written by a trans person. No one else could have done it. And that makes it, I think that makes it really important. And it's true of me, but that's true of each one of you as well. And each one of you over there. That everything that has happened to us matters. Everything that's happened to us is an important source of theatre, of art, and of beauty. So should we see if we can put this into practice? Okay, so what I want you to do is just split into pairs. Maybe just simpler if we do it. I'll sort of disappear while this is going on because they're going to turn the camera off in a minute. And I want you to maybe take a turn speaking and take a turn listening. And when you speak, I don't know if you can do this at home, whether you're on your own or if you're with somebody, but if you're with somebody, how wonderful. See if you can do it. When you're speaking, think of something important that's happened to you. Something that matters to you. Something that you don't mind other people knowing. It doesn't matter what it is, actually. I mean, it could just be going to cook pasta and then realising you'd forgotten the spaghetti, because actually there's a whole series of meanings in it, even in a simple thing like that. So whatever it is, something that's really important to you. That's what you do when you're talking. You tell your companion that. And then when you're listening, I want you just to listen. Try to keep eye contact with the person you're with. Pay them your full attention, your full loving attention, really. Without judgment. Certainly don't interrupt. Don't say, oh, something like that happened to me, or, oh, I don't think you should have done that. Or, oh, yeah, well, something, yeah, whatever. Don't do any of that. It's to do with just a loving attention, a compassionate attention, an empathetic attention. The capacity, if you can, to try to imagine what it is to be that person going through that event. Am I making sense? Yeah? All right. So, if you can do that at home as well, if you're on your own, have a think about something important to you. And if you can, tell it to somebody now, so much the better. If you can't, maybe you'll be able to tell someone about it later. And maybe you'll be able to suggest that to a real friend of yours. And just the other thing is to say that when we do listen to people, we are paying them a huge service. Because in this crazy world, there are very, very few times in which we actually, truly get listened to. That's what you were talking about, this loneliness. And just to listen to somebody breaks through the loneliness of living. So if we take about, let's take about 4 minutes maybe? 4 minutes each way. I don't know why I'm not saying 5, just to be awkward, I suppose. But let's just say 4 minutes each way. 4 minutes to talk and 4 minutes to listen, and then we'll swap round. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll get out your way. Hello, welcome back. I wonder what you've been doing the other end of that camera. We've been having a really, this room has been full of voices, full of people sharing. I hope it's been I hope you've had a good time. I had a pee. I needed to pee, and I needed to drink some water. So let's have a think. So each of you now is kind of like has kind of been given a story. And that story is something really precious because somebody has opened their heart to you. And maybe that's another way of thinking about writing, because we open our hearts to the world and the world opens its heart to us. And what we're given through this experience is, as if I've got a jewel here. It's actually empty air, but it is a jewel. We've been given something really, really precious that we have to honour and cherish and try to communicate as best we can. And what I want you all to do now is just to tell the story that you've been given. Yeah? And I want you to tell it as if it's happened to you. Okay, so I want you to say, I did this or I felt that. Yeah? So tell it in the first person as if it was your experience. And of course it's going to change, isn't it? But that's all right. Don't worry. Don't imagine that you've got this sort of sacred duty to tell it exactly the way it was told you, because you don't have that. Because what will happen as you tell the story is that this story that you've been told is going to be embellished. That's a good word. Made beautiful. Because this product of your partner's, I don't know, sensitivity and rich life experience, you are now going to tell us. And as you tell it, you will be enriching it with your sensitivity and your capacity for empathy and your life experience. And actually, when I come to think about it, that's an image of what happens in rehearsal. That's an image of what happens when a play gets put on. Because we write it, we put everything we can into these words, And then we give it to actors, and they put all their skills into it. And the director puts all their skills into it, however best they can, and the costume person, and the designer, and the lighting person, and the sound designer, and then it's all happening in front of an audience, and they're creating something out of their experience. And so what we end up with is something that is infinitely enriched. And I always think, oh my God, what is happening on stage is so much better than what I thought. There's just so much more richness to it. I mean, occasionally things go terribly wrong, but usually things are much better, and that's really wonderful. And so we're each given a gift. So as you tell your companion's story, you're giving them a gift, and you're giving the world a gift. We don't know what it is yet, but we're about to find out. Yeah? Or should we start with you? Should we start at this end, Love? So this is the story you've been told.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when I was 17, I passed my driving test, and it was a really momentous day for me because it was really freeing, which sounds a bit weird because I was up 17, but obviously like passing that young actually was just a really amazing like confidence boost, and it was really just a really amazing thing to happen. And I had like a rubbish like battered Ford Escort that like I'd been learning to drive in, but actually just being able to like rip off the L plates and just being able to drive myself was just really, really freeing, and yeah, it was just something that I would look back on with pride.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, doesn't that just brilliantly illustrate what we're thinking about? Because it's just a driving test on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's a symbol of freedom and independence and skill and pride. Because it's so hard. It took me, I don't know how many times to pass my driving test. It's really difficult. And it was only a battered old Ford. But on the other hand, what it represented was something unbelievably precious and unbelievably beautiful. Thank you.
A couple of years ago, I went to Calais and to the refugee camps over there, and made friends with one of the residents, a young male who I thought was actually older than me, but it turns out he wasn't, and that was quite surprising. And it was a wonderful experience to be there and meet this person. We kept in touch, and he ended up, he always said he was going to come over to England, he would make his way here, and he did, which was amazing. He got to Warrington and he was in a hotel, so we decided to meet up for coffee, but they wouldn't allow him to use the restaurant in the hotel, so we had to sit in the van that I'm using to take over things to Calais. And it was really strange that here we are, having met him in Calais, we're now in Warrington, but sitting in this van. His English was not, he didn't have much English, I didn't speak Arabic, but somehow we communicated, and we've kept in touch ever since. And it's absolutely wonderful that he's over here, he's got a job, and he's married. And he sends me random texts and photographs of all the things that he's up to, and it's lovely that he's been to London, said he's been to see all the sites, and sent me photographs outside a telephone box, outside on a random bridge, not London Bridge, just a bridge. But it's just wonderful that he's now over here, and he works at night, he takes English classes during the day, and he's picking up local phrases, which I'm not sure he realises what they quite mean. And it sounds, and it's quite amusing, but it's just wonderful that here we are. And also it makes me realise that, yes, we live in such a big world, but it is also a small world for us to come together. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful. I always want to write about refugees. I just think it's such a powerful symbol of the world we live in, of its injustice. And yet, how awful that you had to talk in a van. It's vile the way refugees get treated in this country. And it's such a symbol of the racism and the mean-spiritedness. But how wonderful it ended so well. Thank you. That's cheered me up a lot. Thank you. How about you, dear?
Well, this one, yeah. So, yeah, so I never dealt with death before. So a few years ago, the first time I ever, so a few years ago, I had pets and things and stuff like that. But my grandmother died, so we went to her house, and my auntie was there, and my mum took me, and they were all crying in the front room, and I was sad, but I wasn't like crying. I wasn't like my mum, my auntie, but obviously that's their mother. So I just said, can I go see her? And they said, yeah, of course. So I went up and they put a bedsheet over her, and I didn't understand why they'd done that, because she'd only just passed away, and she, you know, if she was alive, she wouldn't want a bedsheet over. So I just took the bedsheet over and put her sort of over her shoulders, and you know, I touched her skin, but she didn't feel real. She felt like one of the fake, like a model dummy or something. So like a week later, it hadn't hit me properly, and I still wasn't crying or anything. And I just went to bed a week later, and I just could not stop sobbing like uncontrollably. So I went downstairs and I spoke to my mum. My mum was like, you know, everything's gonna be okay. Me and your auntie made peace with her. She's in heaven. And I realised I was crying because she passed away, but I was also crying because I felt like there was no heaven or hell. Like I felt like it was just, that was it. She's just gone. So.
Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing much to say about that, is there? Except that's just it. I mean, it brings back all kinds of memories of my experiences of death. But I won't talk about them just now. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. Because the funny thing is that I just completely believe that was your story. Just totally, oh my Lord. How brave you were to tell that story. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So I have a barber that cuts my hair. He's from East Africa. I've been seeing him for a long time. He doesn't speak any English. He's obviously a very smart guy. He speaks Italian, French, Ghanaian, all other kinds of languages, but he doesn't speak English. So I'll go to the barbers, and I'll just gesture to what I want, and he knows, and he'll do it, and it's awesome. And then I was in there the other week, and he was asking me, am I a teacher? And I said, no, I'm not a teacher, but I do work in a school. And he said, but you speak good English? And I said, yes. And he asked me if I could teach him English. So now, whenever I go in to have my hair done, I spend half an hour teaching him English, and I take in exercises, and I'm teaching him.
Thank you. Oh, well, that's lovely too, isn't it? I mean, just what that perfectly illustrates is how, what I was saying at the beginning about trying to imagine a different kind of world in which we each help each other. We don't work for money, but we work. I mean, I'm sure you give him money anyway. You know what I mean? Because he needs it. But it's just that beautiful moment of exchange of skills. Yeah. Well, he is a very good haircutter. Thank you.
Okay, so this story is an example of how things happen in threes. So I lived in a place called Farnworth, and I'd get the number 8 bus there. And there's 3 significant times when the bus was late. The first time I was living with my granddad, and I was looking after him, so that's why I was in Farnworth. The bus was about 45 minutes late, and my granddad ended up in hospital, so I wasn't there to help him. And so that's the first time. The second time the bus was late, I'd been in this unhealthy relationship, and the bus was about an hour late, and just sort of like the irate feelings like growing and the frustration. I felt like if the bus hadn't been that late, I would have just continued to be in this relationship, but something happened, and I was just like, actually, do you know what? No, I can't do this. And then the third time the bus was late, my granddad had passed away by then, and I was living in his house on my own. Lots of fleas and stuff around, the bus being late just sort of ended up making me call up a family friend and being like, actually, do you know what? I don't want to live in this house anymore. I was only there to be with him, so I sort of ended up moving away from that house, and just the bus being late just sort of led to all these like realizations and all these things. And yeah. So.
Oh wow! Thank you. Isn't that amazing? That's something completely. I'm going to say it's not trivial, a bus being late, but something so random and so common because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it was it's like a biblical story, really, isn't it? This is from the book of Josh. This is how Josh. Wow. Or you might say, or if it was an Old Testament story, the boss would be an angel. Do you know what I mean? It would be like, maybe that's what angels were. Maybe they were really bosses. Wow, or sudden revelation coming from a bus being late 3 times. Oh, that's beautiful, dear. Thank you both so much for that. Josh, how about you?
So I was born in Zimbabwe, and I was named Bridget. Obviously, I don't look much like a Bridget. And as soon as I had a sense of who I was, I didn't really feel comfortable with being called Bridget. So I did try other nicknames around Bridget, Jit. That's not correct. Didge. But still, it just I felt like Bridget's kind of a white middle class girl's name. Like it's not me. If you know what I mean. There was always a separation between Bridget and who I really was. And then I was at university. I was with one of my best friends, and we were, let's say for the sake of camera, not in our own minds. And she said, "Well, what about Ray?" So I thought, well, yeah, I mean, Ray works. Anyway, so I started writing more, my name was out there a little bit more, so I kind of then thought maybe a little bit more seriously about kind of, hang on, who am I? Yeah. And what's the name that I want to kind of present to other people, because it ain't Bridget. So it's Mandela Ray, which is kind of a show like, it kind of means like strength and power. And at first I was a bit kind of worried because I thought, well, maybe people can't pronounce it right, or maybe it's a bit of a mouthful, but then eventually I was like, well, that's who I am. So I mean, you know, people can learn to pronounce it correctly. That's their job, not mine. That's how I got my name.
Wow. Thank you. So naming, because naming, I mean, I went through a whole thing about my name as well. What was I? Because I was born Robert John. Well, that wasn't me. So who was I? And I didn't know what to do. And I was going to go for all sorts of more feminine names. But when I started to live as a woman, I was already quite well known as a playwright, as Jo Clifford. And I thought, if I call myself something completely different, no one will know who I am. And I was proud of Jo Clifford. I was proud of all the work that I'd done as Jo Clifford. So I just went for Jo. And it was by accident, because I was filling in this was really in the early days of the internet. There was a time before internet. and I was I was asked to fill out a form to get an internet address. And I called myself JC at, I don't know, whatever the provider was. And I wonder if it was JC Teatro, I don't know, whatever it was. My writing, and you had to write this on a form. Imagine this, you had to write this on a form, handwriting, and put it in the post and send it to an office. To get, oh no, isn't that incredible? What does that mean about the world? Well, it means a huge amount, doesn't it? And when it got to the office, they didn't see the C, they read the C as an O. And so it came back that my name was Jo. And that's how I got my name. I wasn't nearly as organised as you were. It was just by chance. And I think what I love about all these stories, A, is that, because I thought you were saying, I was born Bridget, I thought, oh, wow. Yeah, you thought
Like, you were born in Zimbabwe.
whoa, that's amazing.
I didn't know that.
And actually what that is a tribute to the power of storytelling, isn't it? Because each one of you did this to me. Each one of you told the other person's story, and I thought, wow, this is their story. And we have to remember this. I mean, this is just a simple thing, us doing it spontaneously, and not even really making. I don't know. Perhaps you were really trying hard to, but do you know what I mean? It just happens. Storytelling has this incredible power to lead us, give us a glimpse of a different world, of a different reality. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, having your hair cut. Imagine you go to a barber's. Yeah. So storytelling has power, but it's the capacity of empathy, isn't it? It's being able to put ourselves into other people's shoes, and that is incredibly important. This is where playwriting comes. This is what matters so much, and it matters not just for playwriting, but it matters for the city. Because if everybody was able to stop, this is such a silly thing to say, really. But if everybody was able to stop for a minute and just think about what it was like to be somebody else, then how different the world would be. How I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like. And so theatre, in that sense, I think is a kind of image of how the world could be, of how the world should be, maybe. It's a kind of image of human possibilities that we didn't even know were there. Let's just think about what it was like to have our story told, because that's another important aspect of all this. When you're writing something down, love. Well, terribly wicked of you. But how was it for you to hear your story?
It's weird because in a sense it felt, I knew it was my story and
Yeah.
you did really faithful telling, but weirdly as well, I started to believe it was your story. That's really lovely. Yeah, so I think it is like it was really easy to almost disassociate with it and hear it a different way.
Yeah, because that's really interesting and important as well, isn't it? Because when we put stories on in a theatre, we tell stories. We are doing the people whose stories we're telling a real service. We're giving the whole thing a meaning that it maybe never had, or maybe that we didn't know it had. Yeah, that was interesting. Thank you. How about you, love?
It felt a bit strange actually, because again it felt like it was Bex's story,
Well, yeah.
and I just was completely disassociated from it in a way, until Bex used the word freedom, and it took me back to when I was 17, and it just made me realise it was the freedom aspect, but it brought back a very strong emotion, and something that I hadn't much realised. So it's almost like being reminded of something, but if I'd have just, when I told Bex the story, there was no emotion there. As such, I was just telling her what it was, but hearing it back from somebody else, it sort of stirred up, and it just gave me a bit more. It just took me back to that time, which was quite a long time ago, long time ago. So yeah, it's good.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's what plays when we're watching the play as members of the audience. Then what happens on stage will suddenly trigger something that maybe we didn't know, and it will trigger something in a really important way that maybe helps us understand our own experiences. But also, I suppose what I was thinking about when I was listening to you, I was thinking about, well, actually, that's what writing is like in some ways, isn't it? Because you're both, or at least I am. I'm really involved in the emotion of whatever it is that I'm trying to convey. I don't know what you do, but I just try to become the person who's, I mean, maybe there's another way of doing it, but I don't think there is really. I just try to become that person, and I try to feel what they're feeling. And so there's a whole lot of very, very strong emotion, but there's another is it cold? Do you know, there's a kind of detachment.
Yes.
There's a kind of detachment, and that's so the heat, the emotional involvement is really, really important, but also that moment of detachment, because that's how we can maybe begin to evaluate what we've done and think, well, okay, this is what is happening in this moment. Can I make it happen in a stronger way?
And also, sort of hearing all the stories and believing that, they belong to the individual saying it, and also with this one, that cold detachment has made me realise that that's an issue I've got with my writing at the moment. So maybe I have realised that I'm trying to hold myself back and just write without getting emotionally involved.
Right.
But maybe I need to do this more, and it might help me more with what I'm trying to write.
Okay.
So that's given me something to really think about.
Oh, good. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, because I'd say it was really worth investigating.
Yeah.
What happens when you get really involved? I cry a lot when I'm writing. I laugh a lot. I get terribly full of despair. All sorts of things. I wear myself out. Sometimes I think that's why I've got arthritis everywhere. It's because I've just lived through several lifetimes, and I'm just worn out. I'm like a clapped out old machine that's not quite functioning properly anymore. But I think it's important. I think we have to feel. It can be very dangerous, but it's important to take that risk. Oh, great! Thank you. How about you?
I think listening to that story, I've known my barber for years, but it took me out because it made me think about how long it took him to ask me to help him. I never thought about that until I heard the stories told from a different, by someone else. Because every time I sit there, say once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'll cut my hair, I'll talk 4 languages in front of everyone, but he never asked me for help for like 5 years, and then just the other week he was just like, can you help me? And then I didn't think until then about maybe how much it took for him to ask for help.
Yeah.
So.
That's a really precious insight, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it took me by surprise. I didn't really think of it like that.
And is that? I wonder what that is. Is that a male thing? Do you think, or is
That's
that?
what I was thinking. I was thinking about. Is it a male thing? Is it the fact that there's 10 people in the shop? Maybe it was just me and him. He would have asked me years ago, but it's never that case. There's always a queue. There's always people. So, but I don't. That's the thing. There's so many different options or theories that you can have about why it took him so long. Or maybe he finally just got comfortable enough with me to ask for help because he thought, all right, I know him well enough now that he won't judge or laugh or something, which I wouldn't do anyway, but I'm sure people's self-esteem and confidence are different. So.
Yeah. That was a great gift he gave you, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, how about you?
I, again, kind of forgot that it was my story. Well, I knew it was my story, but also it became your story as well. And I realised it's because if you're talking about something like dealing with death, everyone's going to go through that. So everyone's going to have or already has an experience of that. And just listening to someone else kind of put it in their own words, I was like, aware that you yourself not telling my story might be feeling that based on your experiences. And it was just really weird. I was just thinking how, well, essentially, like, we've all got our own particular stories, but at the end of the day, we all kind of feel the same things. And
Yeah.
And that's kind of why sharing stories is important, isn't it? So that people feel connected, and less separate from other people, I suppose. Yeah.
And that's so important, isn't it? That's so important to the whole experience of theatre, that we're able to tell stories in a way so that because if I think about my work, it's mine. No one else could write my plays. But at the same time, it speaks to people. Somehow it seems to speak to people because it's about real things like, or universal things like death or whatever. A couple of years ago I wrote a play with Chris Good, actually, called Eve, which is my life story. I came to it because it's kind of, I get very fed up with the sort of way in which trans people are treated in this world, and the fact that we're not understood, and people seem to find it very hard to imagine what it's like to be us. There's that kind of gap that everybody imagines that being trans is such an unusual thing. And I wanted somehow to write a play about it in such a way that everybody could empathise with it. And I wanted to perform it myself. I have a Brazilian friend called Renata Carvalho, an actress who performs another play of mine called The Gospel According to Jesus, Queen of Heaven, which imagines Jesus coming back to earth as a trans woman. And she performs it in Brazil, which is quite a dangerous thing to do, because so many trans women get killed in Brazil every year. It's about one every 30 hours, probably, somewhere in Brazil right now. One of us may well be getting killed. And it happens, these things happen because we get dehumanized. That's what racism is about. That's what the mistreatment of refugees is about. It's because we somehow manage to mistreat, we forget that our fellow human beings are human. And I wanted to try to express that my experience is not that different from everybody else, because everybody else has got issues with their gender or with their name. I mean, your story is just amazing. Like that, it's just, I don't know what the word is. It's so important. It's so universal. And what touched me very deeply about performing that play was the number of people that came up to me afterwards, usually straight people, usually the straightest sort of people that you could possibly imagine. And they said, oh yeah, something like this happened to me. And it wasn't, that they were coming out as trans. It was just to do with their feeling of isolation that you were talking about, the feeling of not fitting in, the feeling of somehow not being true to who they were. And so this is a real paradox, isn't it? Because I think we have to really get into ourselves somehow. We really have to trust ourselves. Really have to trust who we are and what is happening to us. And that way we're able to reach out to other people and tell stories that matter to everybody. And often we do this without being aware of it. I mean, there's you going to get your hair cut at that guy's barber shop. And there was something about what you were communicating to him, without saying a word, that made him trust you. And so often, and this is what's so funny about what we're trying to do as playwrights, because all we have is our words. But actually underneath these words, there's something else going on that we have to trust. We have to hope that it is human and that it is respectful and it is loving and that it will somehow transform the experiences of our audience. Oh, wow, that's quite a tall order, isn't it? Anyway, thank you, that was lovely. How about you?
So yeah, like just sort of like hearing Jo introducing himself as Bridget. Just like that's how, just the sheer ridiculousness is how I sort of have always felt. Like I was just like, who looks at a Zimbabwean baby? And just, like my parents are also Zimbabwean. And just goes, Bridget, really? And like, I don't know, like all my siblings have Zimbabwean names. And then there's just me. And I've always just been like, why? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of like hearing that journey and how like, I don't know, just when I was speaking to you, I sort of like was realising how actually like my name has been a thing that like throughout my childhood I was sort of aware, like, I don't know, I didn't before I even knew about like colonialism and like the influence of the church in Zimbabwe and things like that. I still just kind of was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right.
And there you were as a little baby, carrying the weight of all this colonial oppression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like names are a very big thing, and sort of like especially like trying to like, I don't know, noticing that I sort of anglicised my own name that I'd given myself for a couple of years as well.
Yeah.
To make things easy, just because throughout my life I'd heard like obviously Bridget people can pronounce, but my surname not so much, and just kind of like, I don't know, having like getting to the point where I'm like, actually no, why am I doing this? Like it's not like it's a difficult name, and even if it was, like I would never go to someone like, oh no, can you not just like make your name a bit easier for me to pronounce? But that's what I was doing to myself.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but finding names of characters is really. Oh no! Look, horror on your face.
They're literally just called A, B, and C. Like the play I'm trying to write at the minute, they're still just called A, B, and C until I'm like, I will get to that. Like, let me just focus on the story. Like the names, I will just like struggle over. Like first, let me just get the actual bit done.
Mine are called 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, isn't that funny? I was sitting this morning. Oh, it's so hard. How do you do it? How do you do it?
My characters change names about 10 times throughout the course of the piece, which means each time I have to go back and change that title all the way through. I have to keep changing it. Yeah, just keep changing it till I find the one that feels right.
Okay, wow. How about you, love? How do you name your
Like the text size or names?
Names.
Oh, I just write lines. I just space line, and then either I'll know who they were said by, then find the name, or if I don't know who they were said by, then clearly the line wasn't very appropriate because I don't know who it was meant to be assigned to.
Well, that's brilliant. I started doing that this morning, and then I suddenly needed, even if it was just 1, 2, 3, I needed that.
It's laziness though for me. It's because I can't be bothered trying to format it as I go along. So I just think if I can just do lines of dialogue, or whatever it might be, it just makes it quicker.
Wow. How amazing. This is completely off the point, but it's really interesting. What do you do, love?
I think for me, one of my lecturers at uni, she always said if you're ever on a public transport, try and eavesdrop on conversations and try and take names from people that you don't know.
Oh, right. So you, yes, I used to do that.
So that's my go-to.
So you listen to people.
Yeah.
So you get them talking to you.
Well, yeah, a bit of that as well, but I'll just sometimes just eavesdrop. I'll just be sat behind them, just like, and then they'll be talking to each other, and I hear a name I've never heard before. I go, oh, that's a nice name. Well, that's, that reminds me of the character, so I'll just take it.
Okay.
So I just basically steal from innocent people. It should be a very interesting soundbite.
Okay, so if any of you out there are sitting on a tram or a bus, and you see someone overhearing, you'll know why. What do you do?
The last couple of plays I've written been set surfing. The last one was in the 50s. So what I did is and I tend to do this a lot, is I look at the census for the year that they were born, and look at the top names and but look for the really interesting ones. Rather than the top names, look at what was the more interesting names, unusual names, to try and make it more authentic. But yeah, or I like to use a Latin translation, putting words in and finding what the Latin is, and messing about with that a little bit on some occasions, just to make the names a bit more interesting and to give them the name a meaning. I really like the meanings behind a word. So if it fits the character, then they will get unusual names, but not often. And I have a go-to name. I don't know why, but I love the name Sarah.
Sarah.
I really do. I don't know why. There's no Sarahs in the family, but I just like that name for a particular female type characters that I write. So yeah.
Sarah.
I don't know why.
Wow. Oh, I wonder what it means. Don't know. Anyway, yes. What about you?
The last couple of plays I've written, my characters have been 1 or 2 or A, B, C or D.
Right.
Names. Just one play I wrote was about consent, so it was all about the fact that no one, like it was about 4 people giving evidence about a consent trial, so they were all labelled rather than named. So it was like anyone, yeah. And then if it's direct, like a lot of stuff I've done recently has been like direct address, it's just like they are just 2 actors.
So
clearly, so they are just one.
And so that they're talking to the audience.
Yeah, and they are, and often they acknowledge their actors in the piece at the start, so they are just 1 and 2, which makes it easier, really.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that. But that's really interesting because I have a theory that capitalist drama is all about the individual, isn't it? And it's all about the individual, usually in conflict with other characters or in conflict with the world. And my theory is that we're moving into post-capitalist drama, and it's not about individuals so much. So I'm not that interested in creating detailed psychological profiles of individuals anymore because actually, well, yeah, individuals do matter on one level, but on another level, individuals don't matter. What is really, really important at the moment is the collective experience and the way we either can or we can't get together to, as human beings, to solve the climate crisis, the ecological crisis, the massive injustice of the gap between rich and poor, the refugee situation. And these are things that are not individual things anymore. They're not about individual dilemmas. This is about a whole collective experience. And we have to find a drama, we have to find a theatre that somehow expresses this and explores this and finds a way through it. Yeah. And that's another way. Oh, yeah, I really don't need to keep justifying the title about metaphors and things, but that is another way in which theatre is the people like Calderon used to talk about. Calderon is a 17th century Spanish playwright that I loved. He wrote a play called The Great Theatre of the World, in which human life was presented as an act of theatre. But that is a way in which theatre, somewhere like the Royal Exchange, for instance, which is a very beautiful example in its circularity. It's an image of wholeness, it's an image of collectiveness. Time to go back to the exercise, dear. How was it for you? Can you remember? It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because when you throw a story out or an experience, you don't necessarily. You're trying to tell a story, but you're not really reflecting on whilst you're telling it on how you're telling it. You just kind of say the events, and I think everyone's picked up on that. Like when someone tells you a story, like you decide what the story is really about, whether it's like freedom, for example, in the case of that story. But also what I really liked here is that you found a structure in the story and just subconsciously kind of with a dramaturg on my story, and kind of found like a little 5-act structure to it, and made sure that when you presented to the rest of the group, it felt like a kind of structured narrative.
Oh wow! Oh, because it was 3 acts, wasn't it?
I think that's when you said it's kind of biblical.
Yeah.
I think it's because it felt like there was a dum dum, and then there was a nice little denouement at the end where everything wrapped up that you'd already been told.
Right, and that you're saying that wasn't in the way you tell the story.
No, I was just kind of thinking about the number 8 bus. That was kind of that was my starting point. Like, what's because the thing was what's changed your life? Well, the number 8 bus being late. So I kind of said a number of things that happened whilst the number 8 bus was late, and then it was kind of configured to make more of a narrative sense.
Right.
It's kind of very useful, telling someone else, just because when it's brought back
to you,
like I said, I think what it's about, but also some sort of structure, like how the story really works.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's really interesting. Well done, you. How brilliant are you? But gosh, that's really interesting what you're saying. So what you're talking about actually is a structure of a structure for a writer support group, isn't it? Which is kind of the answer to the dilemma that you started with, just that sense of isolation, that sense of being the only one in this world who's crazy enough to try to write plays, when that seems such a mad occupation in this world, when it's so hard to get plays put on, and where theatre is economically so difficult because it's a labour-intensive craft that's trying to function in a capital-intensive world. And so we need to support each other. We need to learn how to support each other. And finding those structures, which you did, I imagine you did quite spontaneously, didn't you? Yeah.
I didn't
You didn't even know you were doing it.
Yeah, I was just retelling the story how I felt that I'd heard it. But it's weird that you didn't seem to notice the sort of way that you'd...
I assumed you must have put the story out like that in the 3, like things coming in 3.
I mean, I must have done, but obviously you don't really, when you're telling a story, you don't really think about.
Yeah.
You're not trying to structure anything. You just recount the
You're
events.
just telling a story. Yeah.
I suppose there's things that I think natural within us all about how to structure those sort of things.
Yeah. But that's another important pointer, I think, as to how to write. That we have to, because people talk a lot about structure, don't they, in workshops like this? I think they do, and how important structure is. And I've never quite understood it, because, like you, I've just given myself over to the story, and seen where it takes me. I never work things out in advance, which is probably silly of me, but I never do. And then somehow the structure makes itself, and I kind of rely on the little bit of myself that is clever like you to somehow make sense of it, because then once you have the structure in your conscious mind, you're able to, I think you're able to strengthen it. You're kind of able to use it to shape your story. And that's a very beautiful and very important thing, because theatre can help make sense of life when life as lived is often so confusing and so difficult and so painful and so bewildering. And I think that's one of the things we go to the theatre for. Okay, I think it's time for another task, isn't it? Time for another task, you people behind this camera. What I'm going to suggest is that we take 5 minutes in solitude, really, just on our own, perhaps with our notebooks. Perhaps this is a chance to really write things down, and just think about, because I feel I've been so enriched by what's happened in the last hour and a half. We've covered so much. I feel I've felt so much that I just want the chance now to think about it a little bit, just think about this. Think about what's important. Think about, it's just what's important to you in what you've experienced and witnessed. And then maybe you'll also want to, because we still have half an hour, maybe there'll be a question, maybe there's something you want to ask me. Maybe there's something you want to ask me, and you can tweet, and you can just ask me, which is a hell of a lot easier, isn't it? And that would be a good way of finishing. Is that making sense?
Yep.
So should we just take 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll all come back together at 7:30. Hello, welcome back. Wow, goodness, lovely to be here again. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with this end, Josh, I suppose. What struck you about what's been happening, and what would you like to ask me?
What struck me about this evening, what we've done? I quite liked a lot of what you've been talking about, which kind of spurred a lot of ideas about the individual, the collective, the materialist, and the abstract, and how you've related political models to theatrical worlds, and trying to imagine things that are outside that world, and therefore politically outside that world. That's not really a question, but not something that I really thought too much about trying to understand kind of current or mainstream theatre as a sort of ideology, and how can you step outside of that? That's just an observation of some of the things we've been talking about. And kind of ignited some thoughts.
I've just done a version of The Taming of the Shrew, and in my version of The Taming of the Shrew, Petruchio is a woman, and Kate is a man, and Bianca is a man, and all the other characters that are male in Shakespeare are female in my play. So Baptista is a powerful, wealthy matriarch, and Lucentio and Tranio are independent young women who are free to travel the world, and they're unashamed. They're powerful young women, they're rich young women, and they're unashamed of their sexuality. So I've tried to turn the whole world upside down. And instead of the usual casting, so this cast has 5 women and 2 men. And one of the things that I wanted to do with the play has been to take us outside the goldfish bowl of gender, because that's something that normally we can't think about. We just that's who we are. Mostly we don't think about it, and I wanted to invite the audience, to give them an opportunity to think about these things. And it's becoming more and more important to me to subvert the order of things. I think it's becoming an incredible necessity politically, because if we go on in our present path, we're all headed for destruction. And I think theatre has a power, has a role in this. I never used to believe that. I always used to think theatre was a bit of a minority thing. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit of an indulgence, maybe. But I suppose because with my play, The Gospel According to Jesus, Queen of Heaven, from the minute I first performed it, almost 10 years ago now, there were people outside the theatre calling for it to be banned. I was performing it in the Traverse over Christmas this year, and 24,500 and something people signed an online petition for the play to be banned. Every time it's performed in Brazil, evangelical and Catholic church people try to get the play banned. And it's now becoming far too dangerous, actually, to even perform in Brazil. And so that makes me think that theatre has a power that maybe we don't appreciate. And maybe we don't understand, but perhaps we should begin to. And that maybe when we do the things that we've been doing this evening, which is listening to each other, empathizing with each other, telling each other stories, we are doing something powerful. We are doing something profound. And we need to, we need to remind ourselves of this in order to resist the feelings of impotence, maybe, and powerlessness, and solitude and loneliness that I'm sure trouble you as much as they trouble me. Maybe that's really important. I don't know. We'll see.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. How about you, love?
So for me, I've kind of been thinking about how there's so many stories, even in these banal little moments, that we wouldn't think much of. Like the person who almost got hit by a bus. Like, I'd love to know, what were they thinking? What was on their mind?
Yeah.
Not be watching where, and even the way that our names can tell a story. I don't know, just thinking about that and the way that, theatre doesn't have to be this, big show sort of thing.
Yeah.
It can just be those tender moments and really capturing a feeling, like you were saying. I feel like that's what I do in my writing, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god, am I just being so self-indulgent and just being god, it's too many feelings. But no, I don't know, I feel like for me that moment in theatre where you're connecting with an emotion or an experience, those are the, and I don't know, you just sort of made it there is nothing that's too small to be a story to be told.
Yeah,
it's not really a question, but I'm just
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, because it's affirming that everything and everyone matters. And it also affirms another theory I have about, because a basic tenet of capitalist theatre is that theatre is about conflict, because capitalism is about conflict, and capitalism is about competition. I don't believe that. I don't think theatre is about conflict. I really don't. I think theatre is about everything that you're talking about there. It's about those moments of contact, those moments of togetherness. It's about the struggle to find solidarity. It's about the struggle to get together, to find meaning, to find strength, to find understanding. I think that's what theatre is about. And that, I know, that's the kind of theatre that I want to create. And it's very lovely to get your support. I mean, I'm just sort of assuming things about you, but it's just very, very beautiful to hear you say that. So thank you.
Thank you.
How about you?
I feel like what I've taken from tonight might be a little self-indulgent, but I'll go with it anyway. So I've not had a very good week because I've not been very well. So I've just kind of been stuck in my house on my own, just lying on the sofa. My housemate's away because she's on tour, so I've literally just been on my own in the house. And I didn't really want to come out tonight because I've done that closing off, but I had to because I had obligations to come and turn up and do what I'd said I would do. And that's probably why when I left the house and was in the train station, I noticed everyone because I'd had a week not being around other people. But actually being here and just all the listening and the sharing and the being around other people, it just made me feel so much better. Just feel, I feel more positive now and glad that I did come and it's reset me a little bit.
Oh, really
And
good.
it's good to be around other people and share things with other people. Yeah.
I'm really glad. And there's nothing self-indulgent about that, is there? I mean, we don't really need to punish ourselves.
Yeah, true.
And the funny thing, another funny thing about theatre nowadays is how often you read or I read critics that are praising a piece of work and they talk about it as being searing, or what are these, do you know the words I'm talking about, that it really hits you?
Like it's some kind of punishment.
Like it's
Don't
some,
watch it.
like it's some kind of punishment, or it's like the sort of medicine that I had to take when I was a boy, and they used to make medicine taste nasty because they thought it would be good for you. And how often theatre, it's about damaged people inflicting more damage on other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And am I going to say that's wrong? Well, perhaps I am going to say that's wrong. I feel a bit guilty about saying that's wrong. But I don't think, I think there are far better things that theatre can do. And what you've spoken about just now, about your experience of being in this workshop, it's very wonderful, actually, because I think that's what theatre should do. I think theatre should give pleasure, and give pleasure in the richest possible way. And that's one thing I'm really proud about with Taming of the Shrew, because it makes people laugh, it makes people think, it's very sexy actors, beautiful people on stage. It's got this amazing set, fantastic lighting, wonderful music. I think it speaks to people's spirituality. In other words, it's something that enriches every aspect of human life as far as possible. And I think that's a really, really important thing. And above all, what I hope it does is it strengthens people. It's not part of the despair industry like the Muses, or you know what I mean. It actually tells people, yes, a different world is possible. Change is possible. We don't have to live like this. I think that's really, really important. So thank you very much. How about you?
I think what I took from today and this workshop is that there are different ways to enter a story. I think your style is a lot more abstract than mine. I think I find myself quite rigid and set in my ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that listening and talking to you and listening to everyone else as well, but I think for me the thing that really shocked me was just the change in the stories, because I never thought about it like I was looking out, and it made me think about how he felt and things like that. But then that changed the way I think about writing as well, because I think I maybe put too much of myself in my writing. I try to feel every character's pain. I think sometimes that almost numbs the pain, because then it's too much. It's like I'm not seeing it from an outside perspective, so it's a bit like, I don't know, I'm not capturing the correct emotion, because there's always a little bit of me in every character. I think that it's quite good to take a step back and sort of look at it from an outside perspective, which to me is actually quite abstract in that sense, because I've always been taught to write as if it's you in a weird way, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And I think I do think that's important, but somehow to be in opposite places at once, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah? I mean, it's because it's like, and that paradox is actually in the word playwright, because it's about play. It's like what kids do. I mean, I used to watch my daughters, and they'd get, it was My Little Ponies, actually. I don't know, maybe, well, anyway, they used to love My Little Ponies. There were these plastic ponies with long hair, and they would comb their ponies' hair endlessly and give them different hairstyles, but also send them on the most amazing adventures into outer space and into all kinds of places, and be them. Yeah, in that sense, and that's what you're talking about, isn't it? Becoming the character. But then the right bit isn't actually writing. It's like, I don't know, it's like shipwright, or it's like wheelwright. It's really patiently, slowly, painstakingly, and very, very skillfully constructing something out of wood, something that's very grounded, something that's very, it's very down to earth. It's, well, I want to sort of hit this table just to demonstrate how strong and good play is now.
I don't know if that's the strongest.
No, I think I might break it and spoil everything. That wouldn't do. But you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't actually need to do that. Thank you. How about you, love?
I think what I've taken is a little bit of the opposite of what Kofi's just
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
That I didn't when we told the stories, and you asked us how it felt to be told the story back, I think what I realised is, and I'm sorry I feel like this might be a bit self-indulgent, but it's just something that's really sort of hit me tonight, is how how shut down I am towards my writing. I will not allow myself to get involved, and I didn't realise that. And now looking back at what I've been writing recently, and it was really interesting what you said about how exhausted you feel because you put yourself in completely into that. And I just know I've got this barrier that's really stopping me from stepping into it. So I suppose my question is, how can I do that without getting too involved? Don't know if that's a bit garbled, but
no, it makes perfect sense. So what would being too involved mean?
I just feel that if I get too involved and really try and step into it, I think it's due to perhaps a lot of advice or feedback I've had in the past of, don't be careful about having your voice in the play. It's not about you, it's about your characters, and sort of maybe don't be too self-indulgent with your plays and step back, so that you're not getting too emotionally involved. Otherwise, your play will become static and boring, and and I've always feared that. So I think I've gone the opposite way, so I create something that maybe technically is a play. It's structured. It's got characters in. It's got a story. But when you look at it, or when I read it back, I think it just feels like a play by numbers. Rather than there's something missing. There's definitely something missing, and I think tonight I realised it's perhaps that emotional attachment to it that over the last few months or whatever, I've just keep stepping back. So
Oh, I don't want you to find another stick to beat yourself up with. Because I don't think you should do that. I think you should be immensely self-indulgent. I think you should think of writing a play as like, it's like, do you know, a really good bath with one of these amazing bath bombs in it. Do you know the ones I mean? And you put them in like and you don't know where they're going to go. And you can't actually control them. Maybe it's like that. But that's maybe that's a little bit frightening. But no, it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's fun because you don't know what's going to happen. And maybe, so don't reproach yourself for being too cold or reproach yourself for being too self-indulgent. Don't reproach yourself for anything. You're fine.
Thank you.
You're all right. I mean, seriously, you're all right. And no harm's going to come to you. There's some fucker tells you, I shouldn't be swearing, beg your pardon. If some ignorant person tells you you're self-indulgent, well, that's their problem. Do you know what I mean? You just do what you can. And I bet whatever it is that's in you that you could give your characters, a little note for you as well, would be really interesting actually, because you're both fascinating people. Yeah, you're looking a bit incredulous at that, but
I've been called fascinating. I've been called many things.
Never been called fascinating. Okay, well you are fascinating. Maybe you better write that on your mirror. I am fascinating. I have a lot of really amazing things, amazing insights. And be self-indulgent. Yeah, don't be frightened of that.
Thank you.
It's nothing to be frightened of. I'm terribly self-indulgent. I mean, I really am, in the sense that I always write the kind of play that I want to see. Always. And so one reason I'm really happy with Taming of the Shrew is that I think, oh, I really want to see this. Do you know what I mean? This is amazing. This is funny. This is thought-provoking. This moves me. This turns me on. And I think, it's a weird puritanical society we live in. And I guess because being a playwright is not it's not a very respectable profession, or it's not even a very prestigious profession, because it's very hard to make any money out of it, you know. And because theatre is shrinking, it's very hard to get the stuff on, all these reasons. And so people used to say to me, oh, when are you going to get a proper job? Do you know what I mean? When are you going to do some real work? Why do you think you should get paid for this? When you know, self-indulgent? Well, it's not self-indulgent. It's really, really important. And it's really important that the world hears what you have to say. Whatever it is. It's really important. Thank you. How about you?
I think sort of what you said about like imagine how the world can be. I think I write a lot of stuff about how the world is, and like I'm really like I really want to write stuff that speaks to now and kind of like really raises, like I suppose issues is the wrong word, but like speaks to what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I think recently particularly because there's so much going on, I feel like I've got stuck thinking there isn't a story that I can tell that will speak to all of those things, and then it gets really hard to get started because you think like, well, I want to talk about that thing that's happening, or this story, or you read something and you're like, that's a starter.
Yeah.
But that idea about what the world can be, and almost like that macro view of telling a story that is outside of sort of like almost like a naturalistic story even, or more abstract, that speaks to how the world could be. And I think, that I suppose really, if that makes sense. And I don't know what that story is still.
Of course you don't.
But
But how exciting.
yeah. That kind of, and that I'm filling it with that possibility rather than getting stuck on like that second half of it, that like telling how the world is but how it could be, rather than just telling how the world is, because that isn't a play necessarily that people want to see.
Yeah, the trouble is the world feels stuck, doesn't it, in a way?
Yeah.
I mean, and we're bombarded with stuff from media that tell us that the world is terrible, the world is going nowhere. If the world is going anywhere, it's going downhill. And I suppose, and it's really important to resist that. And then the other thing is, anyway, we've all got these bloody sensors inside our heads that are telling us we're self-indulgent, or we've got the wrong name, or or whatever. And we have to find a way past that sensor. We have to find a way through to wherever, to a different world. And actually, we haven't got time, but it'd be really interesting to go around and ask everybody, so what do you do when you get stuck? How do you get past getting stuck? And maybe that's something we could all share after this, because we all have ways of doing it, and sometimes it is something. I write lots in the bath, actually, or sometimes it's music, because sometimes you can hear a bit of music and it just turns you on so much that then you stop thinking, or going for a walk, or just a change of scene, something. But just anything that gets us out of this feeling of stuckness, of not trusting and not valuing ourselves, because we all have the most amazing things to tell the world. And our job is to understand that and try to tell them. Okay, I think we're kind of more or less finished. There's a little thing I'm supposed to be reading here. But what I usually like to do at the end of a workshop, well, I usually like to stand up and go into a circle, but that'll completely screw up the picture. So I won't do that. Right, I'm resisting that. Can we just hold hands as we're sitting here? Kind of virtually hold hands out there, and yes, and yeah, you two can hold hands behind the camera, and let's just value this moment of togetherness, because we're not alone, actually. And maybe we can just say thank you to all of us, because we've all created whatever has happened in the last 2 hours. All of us, we've done it together. And maybe there's a word, There's one word that sums up. So it would be thank you us for, well, I'm going to start. I'm going to say thank you for just a feeling of solidarity. That's more than one word. Thank you for solidarity. How about you?
Oh, what am I thanking for? What am I thanking?
Yeah.
I just think I'm just thankful that I came here and sat here and did it because I was a bit nervous. So.
Yeah, thank you for courage. Your courage.
Thank you for sharing your wonderful stories and your insights.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for words.
Ah, words. Yay.
Just thank you for just the togetherness of being writers, just talking together. It's really always wonderful to be in these kinds of spaces.
Thank you.
Thanks for just being present in the room and listening to each other.
And thank you for being present out of the room. Now, this workshop will be available on the writeaplay.co.uk website shortly. And I didn't even know that website existed. So visit writeaplay.co.uk. Please do join us again on Monday the 25th of March for an international live stream workshop hosted by Playwriting Australia. How amazing is that? We'll all be going to Australia on March the 25th for a workshop that is led by the wonderful Patricia Cornelius. Thank you very much and good night.